Hey folks, welcome back. I'm Dave and we're here in my shop where I build Ewor guitars. This is going to be episode number 11 of the CNC guitar building series where I'm building this guy right here. I call it the Ewor Stingray. It's an offset body guitar. It's got two humbuckers, set neck, two pneumatic bridge. It's got one volume, two tones, a three-way blade switch. I think it's going to be a really super cool guitar. I'm using black cherry for it for the main bulk of the wood. I've got some cool looking zero coat in and an inlay here. And I'm using some zero coat and cherry in the neck too. And I did taper stripes up the back. Anyway, that is for those of you folks who haven't been following along with this build. So any of you all that have been following along know that we've been working on the neck the last few videos, and it is finally time to carve this thing. Now I know this has mostly been a CNC centric series I'm doing because I'm learning how to use a CNC machine, and I'm kind of taking all of my learning experience. And a lot of folks carve their necks on a CNC, carve the back shape of the neck on a CNC, but that is way beyond my experience level on the CNC. And besides, I really kind of dig just carving them by hand. So this video is going to be my how I lay out the neck, how I shape it. I'm going to shape it, sand it, get it all set to go, and get it carved up. So anyway, that's what we're going to do in this video. Hope you stick around and check it out. And if you dig it, how about you give me a like and subscribe? Anyway, let's go ahead and get rolling with this video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do before we start doing any carving on this thing is we need to remove the bulk of this material from the back of the neck. I make my necks about 1.25 inches thick. That way it has the heel at the thickness I want. But it also means I'm going to have to remove, gosh, at least a 1/2 inch out of this, the main body of this neck back here. So what I do is when I do my necks, the last several anyhow, I've been using this 59 Les Paul template. We've got this shape here is at the 11th fret, this shape here is at the 1st fret, and this shape here is at the heel, and I'm not going to use that particular shape because I carve my heels in by hand. But this gives me a really good starting point for shaping my neck, and it has a really nice feel when it's done. And I get it as close to these shapes as I can, although a Les Paul neck is different in width at the 11th fret than my necks. But I still use this as a general guideline to get my shape in line for what I want. Okay, and also on this little template, it tells me the thickness of the neck at different points along the neck. So it tells me at the 1st fret, where are we at here? At the 1st fret with the fretboard on top, we're at 0.895 inches thick. And at the 11th fret with the fretboard on place, we're at 0.980 inches thick. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that camera down. I'm going to use a square and my calipers to mark those 2 points, and that's going to give us the basic line to cut before we get going shaping this thing. So I'm going to turn the camera down right now. We're going to knock that out and then get this thing over the bandsaw and cut it out. Okay, so just as a precaution, I just went through and checked my measurements again, and I seem to be right on. And now, at the heel down here and at the volute, I just kind of roughed in a curve by eye. We're just going to use that to cut it out. Now I'm going to leave this line intact. I'm going to cut it a little bit big, in other words. And then we're going to take it. I've got a jig I clamped this to. We're going to take it over to my sander, my oscillating spindle sander, and we're going to clean that up to the line, which is going to be our start point for carving. So right now we're going to take it over the bandsaw and get that cut out and get it rigged up on that jig then. Well, that was awesome. I hit the off button on the camera instead of the on button, and I didn't video myself sawing that thing in a bandsaw. But nevertheless, it came out just fine. The width came out good. You could see I left plenty of space there to work it down with my spindle sander, and that's what we're going to do next. So let's get this thing clamped onto my jig. I'll show you that, and then we'll get over there and start sanding away. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to bring it right to my line here, which will be the depth, the actual accurate depth all the way through this thing. And I want to also bring it back to the rear heel and up here to the volute too, and kind of get that cut in with the spindle sander to get the right shape for these things. So what I'd like to do that is I want to be able to hold this very, very square to the ground, and I want to hold it very parallel to my oscillating belt sander. So to do that, I need to clamp it onto this board right here, which is nothing more than just a piece of MDF, and it's got a plywood base and that square, and it's something I use for clamping things square for something like this. But now the difficulty is I've already got the fretboard on, which is radius, and I got frets in it and everything, and it's going to be hard to hold this really accurate. I don't want to hold this like really super accurate. So what I do is I've got a little piece of 1/2 inch MDF, and I'll put that on this end, and I'll set the face of the neck on it here. That's ultimately where the pickup is going to get cut out. I'll set that side there, and then I've got this cut off from an earlier neck, and I'll put that over here. I'll use a little double-sided sticky tape, and I'll stick this guy on there. And something I'm going to want to do, so now that's going to hold it perfect. It'll be perfectly perpendicular to the bottom surface and perfectly parallel to the belt sander. And something I'm going to want to do too, and I'm going to set it to where the center line of this thing is perfectly parallel with the bottom surface. So that way when I come to cut in my curves here at both the volute and the heel, it'll be a nice square cut across here, which it's all getting carved by hand anyway, but I mean, it's just good practice to do that sort of thing. So anyway, let's get rolling on that right now, and then we'll get over to that oscillating belt sander and start grinding away. Okay, so I think that's I think they came out really well. Let me get it out of this jig here. I'll see if I can show you the thing. Yeah, I think it looks good. So that should be. I'll get the calipers here in a second, but I don't know if you can see, but I'm right on my line all the way through. I think I got a nice starting point for my my heel transition, and the volute I think looks good. Got a nice square line there, so I've got a good center on it, and I think I've got a good. I think I'm set. So let me grab my calipers for the heck of it and just measure it. Just kind of see where we're at. Okay, 0.930. So we're still. I was supposed to be 895. We are actually 0.93. So I've got plenty. And down here at the 11th fret, it's supposed to be 0.98. Oh, look at that. I'm 0.98, exactly on right there. So I think I'm very close to ultimately where I want to be with as far as the thickness goes. Now it's just time to carve it. So let's go ahead and get it clamped down to my other jig, and I'll show you the tools we're going to get carving away on this thing. Okay, so before we start carving, I thought I'd real quick go over my little setup I've got here. So this is one of the first holding jigs I've ever made. It's I've added this 2x4 to it since I built my bench here with the leg vise, because it drops in here really nice, and I can clamp it in good. So it's got an angled end, it's got a flat spot here where I hold my neck. I clamp my neck down here and here, and then I just drop it in the leg vise, lock it in. It works really good. It holds it nice. I use these 2 clamps on the end. When I want to, I could take it out and flip it around the other way, put it in there, clamp it down, and then carve on the other side of the neck too, and it works real handy. And so my neck will just sit in here. I've got the headstock sits up on this little block MDF, and the heel does here, and I'll get a clamp up here like so. About like that. I get another clamp down here on the end. And that clamps it in really nice. And then I'm able to go ahead and carve it. So the tools I like to use for carving the necks is this is the first one I use. It takes out the bulk of the wood. It's called the Shinto rasp, and it's kind of like a bunch of very sharp saw blades all hooked together. And I got a coarse side on one side and a not so coarse side on the other side. And that thing, I mean, that thing will definitely take off some material. That thing works really good. Then I've got these little Japanese round rasps. I got a coarse, a medium, and a fine, and they work really well. I work them up around the volute, and I work them around the heel here too, once I get that laid out. They work really good. And I also use this, I have like a rat tail rasp here. I use that too, same deal when I get up around these volutes and everything. And of course I got chisels up here too, and I'll oftentimes get those out, just kind of whatever it takes, you know. And then once I feel like I'm about 98% of the way there, I finish it off with some of this 80 grit sandpaper right here. There's nothing like using your hands, feeling on the back of a neck to really get down to the nitty gritty, and you finally feel it when you know it when you hit it just right. I mean, your hands can see things your eyes can't see. And so anyway, that's what I finish it off with. But so anyway, that's what I do. I just start carving away. Of course, I have my little Les Paul. I've got my little Les Paul guide here, my template to go by. So I'll keep checking that at the 1st fret and the 11th fret to make sure I'm staying within that shape that I want to hit. And I just start carving away. And it's a lot of fun too, so. Okay, so I guess this guy's coming along pretty nicely so far. I'm getting a nice, getting a very nice feel to it. To the back of it, I'm getting it rounded nicely. I've got I've been working this transition up to the headstock on the volute, getting that kind of worked in there real nice, and I'm getting a decent little cut going here on the heel too, where it's going to join the body. So I think that's about it for those for the rasps and all that type of thing. I think that's just, I think we're beyond that now. I think what I want to do next is I'm going to move on. I'm going to start with my DA sander here, this orbital sander, and probably just some hand sandpaper with 80 grit. I think, so now I've carved this all the way up to the bottom edge of that fingerboard, and I haven't gotten onto the fingerboard yet. I stopped it literally right at the bottom edge of that thing. So I'm going to cut onto that a little bit. What that does is that sort of gives you a ridge right here. And I want to get rid of that ridge because that's going to make that neck feel so much nicer if the fingerboard kind of planes in with the roundness on the back of the neck. I think that's going to, I think I'm going to work on that next with this guy, and then just, you know, keep working it in by hand with the sandpaper. So. Okay, so that is 80 grit all the way, and though I really wasn't trying, I kind of have it, the treble side up here is a tad more rounded, sorry, the base side. The upper side here is a tad more rounded than the lower side, and though I could probably cut this down and make it the same, I've kind of done a built-in asymmetrical neck. It's a little bit, just a tiniest bit flatter on this side here, and I think that feels pretty good. Like there's a nice ridge almost along here that your thumb could sit on, and your fingers wrap around nice. I think that feels pretty good. I could still change that, but for now I think I'm going to just kind of go with that. I think. Now I want to check my my heel joint, see what that looks like in this body. So we'll go ahead and stick that in there. I won't finish the heel joint till this thing is glued together. And it's in there, and I've got to still work on the height too. Let's see. For now, not terrible. Okay, so I'm going to be thinning this body down here in the back, but I think for now I've got it hit just about right. I think that's going to be okay. So I think for the time being, I'm going to leave this neck just like this. I'm going to get ready to glue it into the body in the next video, which means we're going to go ahead and thin this down a little bit, get the thickness right and everything else. But other than that, I think we're pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Well, guys, I guess that's about it for this one. I've got a neck that I am pretty darn pleased with. I think it's feeling really good. I'm really digging my little inlays under that fretboard. Remember, that started out being a mistake, but I think that's pretty cool. And I got that blended in real nice, so there's absolutely no feeling between the fretboard and the back of the neck. No feeling of difference or anything. The volute looks really cool. I'm quite happy. I really am. So I got this whole thing up to 80 grit, and we'll keep it here at 80 until we move on, get it mounted in the guitar, get it glued in. Then we're going to blend this the heel in and everything, and then of course we'll sand it up through 220 and 320 before we get to finishing it. But for now, I think that's it. I think this neck is done for now. I think it's time to get back on that body. We need to do a little contouring around the outside edge of the body, and I think I'm going to try that on my CNC machine. And I enjoyed the heck out of doing it. And hey, if y'all, it's the first time watching my channel and you got a little something out of it, how about you give me a like and maybe even subscribe too if you'd like to come back again. But anyway, y'all come on back next week and we'll be working on that body. And in the meantime, God bless you. Y'all have a wonderful week and we'll see y'all in the next one.